Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the GeoJuris Today podcast. And today we are having on the show Lieutenant Colonel J.S. Sodhi, who is a very renowned defense and strategic expert. We'll be delving deeper into his book, The China's War Clouds, which is a research masterpiece on China, discussing about its topography, its culture, its political history, and what made China today a military and economic superpower, challenging even the United States of America. Most importantly, we'll discuss about how China will fight 5 wars in the forthcoming years, including a two-front war with India or the northeast and the northern province along with Pakistan. We'll discuss about how the Indian leadership has been preparing and is even prepared to fight the China's war clouds. Stay tuned for our robust discussions and make sure that you subscribe to our channel and comment down your reviews in the comment section down below. Thank you so much. So, sir, my first question is, what made you write this book? Coming from a service background, being a seventh generation army man, what made you suddenly come into defense journalism, become an analyst, author, and then write this book?
Jai Hind Rudraksh, Jai Hind Koam. It's my honor and privilege to be on this esteemed platform. I've been following your platform for a long time. And firstly, I would like to, compliment your entire team for the fantastic work that you're doing. Because the subject that you have picked on about geopolitics is very important. For every person has to understand this, and then only can the threat overall of any situation where the pros cons can be understood. Well, my journey into the media started in a totally unexpected fashion. I had never thought that I'll be in the media, I'll be a defense analyst. So I'll just take 2-3 minutes to tell about my brief foray into this. Well, in 2013, I took the premature retirement, as it is called, as the voluntary retirement in the civil from the Indian Army. And I had decided I'll only work in the corporate. But things were to change. And after a few years, that is to be precisely 6 years from today, there's a friend of mine who appears on 1 or 2 channels, and I used to see him. And I also had this desire to come on the television, maybe for 1 minute. But everyone has got their own dreams and desires. So that was my dream and desire. So I requested him that, can you get me on air? And like a good friend, he said, yes, it'll be done. There'll be just no problems. I'll send you the number. You contact that person and you'll come live on air. I was very happy that my life's, desire is going to be fulfilled in a matter of few days. But he didn't reply. He didn't send me any number. After a few days, I sent him a gentle reminder on WhatsApp. He saw the message but didn't reply. I understood, and then I reconciled that not all decent desires get fulfilled in life. But things took unexpected turn on 8th of December 2021. That was a day when the then Chief of Defense Staff of the Indian Armed Forces, General Bipin Rawat, along with his wife, Mrs. Matulika Rawat, and 9 other army personnel were on board an helicopter. And that helicopter crashed near Kunur. And in all the WhatsApp groups I'm in, because I was out of my house that there was some work, and all the WhatsApp groups I'm in, this post was posted by someone or the other about this plane crash. And in that list of names, which was also posted, was a name, Brigadier L.S. Lidder. When I saw that name, I was shocked. I was shocked seeing the other names also, but Brigadier Lidder, because I had a personal connect with him. He had been 1 year senior to me in Mau, in Kendriya Vidyalaya Mau, where our fathers were posted, being in the army. And then he was 1 year senior to me. Apart from the school, he was later on became 1 year senior to me in the army also, starting from the training in the National Defense Academy, Khadagwasla. So we had a very close relation with Brigadier Lidder and his family. So around 7:30 in the evening, when all the media channels broke the news that all on board except one have passed away, I felt something breaking in me inside, because I had known Brigadier Lidder for decades, his family, and it was a very tough night for me. I couldn't have my dinner, tried to sleep, but obviously, losing such a close friend for decades, it isn't easy. And the least I could do that time, in all the WhatsApp groups I'm in, I posted a small message that I knew Brigadier Lidder very well. He was approved Major General in the Indian Army, a very fine officer, fine human. His nickname was Tony, and my last words in the message were R.I.P. Tony. And I posted this we posted this message in all the groups I'm in. Around 11:30, I get a call from Nadeep Dhaya, who was the editor of First Post, and he said that, I've seen your message, and can you write an article on Retd for us. I said, by when you want the article? He said, by tomorrow. So morning I got up, I had no exposure on the national media. I wrote whatever came to my heart. And after it was published, I mean, it was appreciated well. I got a call from Nadeem Thai also. He also appreciated the article. Well, after that, then my foray into the print media started. I started writing more articles. Then more print media publications started contacting me. But I generally restricted my articles to normal incidents in the army, nothing to do with geopolitics, because I had no connection with geopolitics or international relations that time, because it had been years since I left the army. And then in the middle of my army career, I shifted from being a combat soldier to being a technical soldier. After having done my MTech from IIT Kanpur, I had gone on the technical field. So my touch with the combat portion or geopolitics, as we say, totally finished. But things again were to change 2 years back on 24th February 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. And it was in the evening around 10:40 p.m. I and my wife were just finishing dinner and a call comes from a news channel. That's how we've been reading articles on the print media. Can you come on air and speak about Russia-Ukraine war? Frankly, I had no idea that Russia has invaded Ukraine or what is the background to all this.
Right.
So because it was an opportunity, I didn't let it go. I went there, spoke out of my common military knowledge. And after the show was over, I told my wife this was my first and last appearance on TV channels. So she told me that it was your desire. You appeared once, that's good enough. I said, yeah, that's right. My desire has been fulfilled. But then after that, I started getting calls from numerous channels. And then obviously I started reading because I started going on numerous channels. And then my interest in the geopolitics, international relations got rekindled. And presently I'm on 67 international and national news channels with an average of 8 shows a day. My articles are published in 51 national and foreign print media publications. Apart from that, recently I wrote a book also, and now I'm called for various lectures to various universities, colleges, think tanks. So, I mean, the process started. Why I told this story was also with a small message to all the viewers of your esteemed channel, which is a very famous channel, and millions of people watch it every day. And more so because it is a youth-driven channel, is that whatever be your dreams and desires, firstly, never let it go. It may not happen immediately. It may take time, but trust me, it will happen. And the second most important lesson, whenever any opportunity comes your way, take it. You may succeed, you may not succeed. But if you're put in your heart and soul, it will never go waste.
Right.
And the day I first went on a TV news channel, I made 3-4 self-promises. One was, whenever I appear on a news channel or on a podcast or in a discussion, I'll be wearing a suit and a tie. Secondly, I'll never raise my hand in any discussion. If the anchor asks me, I'll reply. If I'm not asked, I'll not reply.
Right.
The third, whatever values were taught to me in the army, for which I have done my entire service, my entire training, I'll never let those values down. For whatever temptations come, for whatever things I'm told, I'll never let down those values, because the values enshrined in the Indian Army are those enshrined in the Indian Constitution. Okay. So I'll never go against them, because that has been my thing right from beginning. So with these 3-4 self-promises, things have, by the grace of God, worked well for me. And again, I would say to all your viewers, have trust in the country, have trust in the Constitution, have trust in yourself. And there's nothing that can stop you from being super successful.
That's really motivating, sir. So now I would like to ask you, why China War Clouds? Why you dedicated your first book to China only?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And what happened after I went on the media, the print media and the electronic media, and then I started being interviewed by various print media publications, like I just said. So in this first week of February, this year itself, I was approached by India Stat, which is a print media publication, the journalist Mahima Sharma. So she approached me that she wants to interview me on Chinese threat to India. So the interview was published in the publication 15th February this year. And it was appreciated the world over. I got a lot of calls, a lot of messages on LinkedIn, Twitter about the way it was received by the world foray as such. So that day I decided I'll write a book, and next day, 16th February 2024, I started writing this book. And I finished writing this book on 10th May this year. And thereafter, the post, writing stages, the pre-release stages, all those things happened. So my interest in China as such got, like I said, rekindled obviously when I started going on the electronic media for various discussions, because topics were wide and vast, ranging from Pakistan to China to Iran and all those things. But as I was reading more and more about China, I started realizing that things are not right. The things which are being projected are not the way they actually seem. Because of my military experience, I could make out that when I'm putting all the timelines together, when I'm putting all the pointers together, the future isn't safe and secure as it is being made out by many people across the world, including USA. And like I said, when my interview was published in India Stat, and after it got good reviews, then I started writing this book. So today, I have no hesitation in saying, and which I've written in my book also, if there is one danger to world peace or world order, it is only and only China.
So let's begin by talking about the topography of China. So what is that country made of entirely? What is the terrain like? Where is the population centers and etc.?
Kuvam, in any Indian Army discussion, the first thing which is discussed about any operation is the terrain, right, or the topography or the geography as we know. Now, why understanding the terrain is important? Because when you understand the terrain, and officially it is called as the terrain analysis in the Indian Army. Why the terrain analysis is important? Because it gives you the full picture of how the story has been till now and how the story will proceed after this. Because on terrain depends everything. Now, when I started researching about China, and I started my first book in a typical military fashion of introducing the topography of China, right, I have written that the Chinese topography was such before 1949, when the Civil War ended, that it was a very small country. Because we all are aware that the Chinese Civil War ended in 1949. But at that time, when it ended, China was a very small country. It is not as that vast country as we see it today. Because the China of 1949 was devoid of Tibet, was devoid of Xinjiang, which earlier was an independent country called East Turkestan. So the size of China was very less. Now, after the Civil War ended in 1949, thereafter the entire game of China began. Now, coming to the specifics of topography, if we look at the map of China, on the eastern part, they have the coastline, which is 14,500 kilometers long. And on the eastern part of China is where more than 90% of the Chinese population stays, and all the important cities are in their eastern part. Now you come to the northern part. The northern part has got deserts, be it the Gobi Desert or be it the Taklamakan Desert. The western part has got Xinjiang, which is highly mountainous region, and then you have Tibet, which is the Tibetan Plateau. Right. Now, Tibetan Plateau is called as the water tower or the water tank of the world because all the major water sources or rivers emanate from the Tibetan Plateau.
It's also called the third pole.
Correct, the third pole. Yeah. So, and it gives water to 2.67 billion people, 2.67 billion Asians. Now, you come to the southern China. The southern part of China has got subtropical forests. So, if we see China, for them, their most critical part is the eastern part.
Right.
Like they say, the stomach is the soft portion, the soft belly. Because any damage to your stomach can make you, without any function, it can put you in a lot of trouble. So for China, the soft belly is the eastern part. Now, like I said some time back, that China, after the Civil War ended in 1949, did not have Tibet, did not have Xinjiang or East Turkestan. Mao Zedong, the Chinese politician who led China to a successful war, at that time gave a policy of palm and five fingers in 1949. Now, by palm, he meant Tibet. The five fingers he meant was Ladakh, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, Nepal, and Bhutan. So now, the Chinese people that time understood that if they have to sustain as a country, like I said, it was a small country that time, they would need water. And if you don't have water, if some other country controls water, you'll always be at the receiving end because you'll always be the whims and fancies of the country who controls the water resources.
Right, so.
So the first priority for them was to annex Tibet.
I'm sorry to interrupt here, sir. But apart from all these nations, why do you think China realized this thing very early that it needs to expand? Because this expansionist kind of ideology is found in very rare nations. Like, I found it right now in China only. Any other nation doesn't have these expansionist theories right now. But what made China realize these things so early that they have to expand, they will be in need of resources? What thing lagged in the eastward China or the China that was of 1949? That made the leadership realize that now we need to annex those 5 fingers. We need a leadership vision of 10-15 years ahead.
Very, very nice question again. See, China is an enemy country and I have no hesitation saying so because so many soldiers have died because of China. So many common citizens have died because of China. My own army personnel have died because of China. So for me, China and Pakistan will always remain an enemy country. But despite them being enemy country, you have to grant them something. They have some good points also, which should be learned by the other countries. One of the good points is that they plan decades in advance. Their political leadership plans decades in advance. Now, because the political leadership in the 1940s realized that if they will not annex Tibet, they will not have water. And if they will not have water, their very existence will always be under threat. They'll be under a lot of pressures and pulls. So you have to grant to the vision of the politicians of China. Even today, as we discuss more of the book, I'll tell you about all the visionary leaders from the Chinese point of view, how they have planned, how they have taken the country one step forward. They've never taken the country
backwards.
So,
I have to say, is it perhaps because, in India, people often talk about Akhand Bharat? So quite be probable that the Chinese talk about Greater China because a lot of their expansion has been driven along the line of the Qing dynasty that once controlled China.
Well, you are right to a great extent, but when China started the expansionism, that time the Akhand Bharat theory in India wasn't much in vogue and very few had heard. But China as such had realized the importance of both Tibet and Xinjiang or East Turkestan. Tibet, I just explained about the reason of water and why they wanted to annex East Turkestan, which they call Xinjiang now, was they realized if they annex Tibet, there'll always be another danger that someone would try to disrupt their water sources. So to be a step further, to kind of create a buffer zone for the water, because they understood the importance of water, which the balance of the world understood very late. It is only last few years that we see a lot of climate change policies and discussions and conferences and water being scarce. If I take my life back by a few decades, water as such was never discussed. It was common habit to see people, wasting water, the taps would go on. But it is only last few years where this consciousness has been increased that every drop matters. Right. So now we see even children being very conscious. They will not waste one drop of water. So this consciousness in the world started pretty late about water. But in China, it started in 1949 itself.
Correct.
So they annexed East Turkestan to create a buffer zone for their water sources, which was in Tibet. Now, coming a little further, just to buttress this point, today, because China controls Tibet, all the lower riparian countries, be it Vietnam, Cambodia, India, Bangladesh, we are virtually, Laos, Cambodia, we are virtually at China's mercy regarding water is concerned. In fact, just few days back, there was this article in the media that China is constructing a 60,000 megawatts dam on the Brahmaputra river. Now you imagine a dam of this colossal thing being created. What are the military implications? Drinking water we all understand. Water irrigation we all understand. But understand the military implications. The military implications are a dam of this size, when it stores water, and whenever China decides to attack any of its neighbors and the dam is opened, there'll be floods. So the nation army on which the China is attacking, what will it do? Will it do flood relief? Will it look after the borders? will it look after own citizens? You can imagine the chaos being created, and the other thing which I'll explain. So from the topography point of view, China was very visionary. It acted much before anyone could understand. Even USA, which was a superpower after the World War II, was an established superpower. Even USA could not fathom China's designs. And now that they are fathoming, it is too late because they have controlled everything. So, summing it up, the topography plays a very important role. Like I said in the beginning, the army's discussion starts with terrain analysis. When you understand geography, when you understand topography, you'll understand why exactly the things are happening which are happening today.
There's also a very famous book called The Prisoners of Geography. It basically focuses on the point that why today's behavior of a nation is because of the geography they are in. Like why today's Russia is becoming more benevolent. Why today's China is becoming more benevolent. Just because of its resources, just because of the topography. If there were no Himalayas, if India is also being protected right now, it's just because of its geographical features.
Correct.
There is an ocean in the south.
Yeah.
There are Himalayas in the northeast side and in the north province only. So, sir, as you have raised the point of America right now, and you have also mentioned in your book as well. So, sir, what would you describe as the Richard Nixon's visit to China, and how you think that America kind of was negligent in a way of this growth in China today? I didn't predict it.
What we should do is that, let's start with Chinese history as a whole. Well, let's come to that procedure with, the occurrences. So instead, let's begin with the 19th Third Revolution in China. The first step towards, China becoming a modern nation. So could you please elaborate on that, the journey they had till the Civil War?
See, in 1912, there was this, the Communist Party of China started gaining foothold because communism started coming in the world after Karl Marx's famous theories. And so now there became a problem in China between the Chinese Communist Party and the Kuomintang Party. The Kuomintang Party, led by Chiang Kai-shek, wanted democracy, whereas the Chinese Communist Party, led by Mao Zedong, wanted communism. So this problem started after the collapse of the Ming Dynasty. This problem between the two main parties of China started, and it finally culminated in the Civil War, which finally ended on 1949. And thereafter, the story of modern China starts, where the mainland China came to be known as the People's Republic of China, and the Taiwan, which was earlier called Formosa, came to be known as the Republic of China, or ROC. Whereas, it is very ironical that before the Civil War ended, the China that we call today as PRC was called ROC. And ROC was a founding member of the United Nations. But because the communists won the Civil War, they threw out the, Kuomintang Party. So Taiwan became ROC, and the ROC, which was earlier, was renamed as PRC. So the turbulence in China started primarily because of the two ideologies, the communism and the capitalism, between Kuomintang and the Chinese Communist Party.
Correct, sir.
Rudraksh, coming to your question about how I would describe President Nixon's visit to China, I would just say one word: biggest blunder that USA ever did. Why I say it's the biggest blunder? You see, somebody who's your enemy, he may try to be good friends with you, but remember, the hatred never goes away. I would like to draw your attention to a movie when I was in my 20s. There's a movie called Darar, starring Arbaz Khan and Juhi Chawla. And the first shot of the movie is there's a mirror, and suddenly the mirror crackles. And from a voiceover comes and it says, when a mirror breaks, it can never be rejoined again. Similarly, when relations break, they can never be rejoined again. Now USA, just because the Cold War 1.0 was going on between US and erstwhile USSR, and at the same time, China and USSR were having a lot of problems. So USA thought that to downplay or downsize USSR, let us become good friends with China. And they started their diplomatic maneuvers. The National NSA of USA, Henry Kissinger, had many secret visits in 1971 to China. And in 1972, from 21st February to 20th February for a week, President Richard Nixon of USA visited China. And at the end of the visit, he famously remarked, "This 1 week visit will change the world." Well, he didn't understand which way it will change the world. After 5 decades, we know how it has changed the world. Because China got so much of money power because of Richard Nixon's visit. They opened up trade with China. USA made China as the world's manufacturing hub. And with this kind of money they have, now on the military spree that they have gone, they are giving jitters even to USA, which I'll explain as we go further in the book. So a lesson to be learnt is that when your ideologies are separate, when there have been problems before, it is extremely impossible, I would say again, for relations to come on a normal keel as it existed before. USA knew very well that there are two different ideologies, capitalism and communism.
Can never be in sync.
Whatever we do, these two can never come in sync.
Correct.
And that is why I said it is the biggest blunder America made. And it is because of that blunder, everyone today is suffering. And like I mentioned in the book, if actions are not taken today, in today's time, the coming times will be so difficult that it is disastrous even to think out how the future will pan out to be.
See, it can rightly be said that America let the wolf into the chicken house, the chicken coop.
Exactly. Very, very aptly put. Very aptly put.
Yeah, they did let in, open the doors, the floodgates for Chinese expansionism by giving them, legitimacy. And the fact is that, Deng Xiaoping was so grateful that they even invited Nixon after the Watergate scandal. When he visited, they wanted to meet him.
Yes, you're right. When, after Richard Nixon went back to US after his visit, and few years after that, the famous Watergate scandal took place and Richard Nixon had to resign. And now the process of normalization between the diplomatic relations between China and USA had started. So when Deng Xiaoping visited USA for the formal signing of the restoration of the diplomatic relations, Nixon was no longer in power. But as a goodwill gesture, the Chinese insisted that Nixon should be called to the White House because he was the man who changed the entire relations between USA and China.
Well, talking of Deng Xiaoping, could you have us, elaborate upon the transformation from Mao Zedong's era to Deng Xiaoping? And now he's the one, who truly built China to the economic superpower.
Right.
Yeah. See, Deng Xiaoping's era was a very turbulent era because China underwent a lot of bloodbath and mayhem in the period that Mao Zedong was at the helm of affairs in China.
Right.
But not all was bad in that period also. After the Civil War ended and two Chinas emerged, the Communist China and the ROC China. Now the first thing which Mao Zedong did, he realized that if China has to become a nation of repute, the first thing we need to focus is, apart from the water thing which I explained, is education. Again, I would say, many countries the world over that time did not give importance to education. Again, what I said, it's an enemy nation, but they've had visionary leaders also. They thought about water, which we are thinking now for the last few years. They thought about education, which the world has woken up just about a decade or so back. Now, what China did after 1949, they started giving impetus on education. And in the first 16 years after the Civil War ended, they achieved astonishing figures of their primary school enrollment increasing to 4 times, their secondary school enrollment increasing to 8.5 times, and their college enrollment increasing to 4.5 times. These were the kind of figures they were able to achieve in just 16 years. So they put education on track. At the same time, Mao Zedong also introduced the 5-year plans. And the 5-year plans were such that whatever they planned, they ensured it is implemented.
Sir, I'm really sorry to interrupt here.
Yeah.
But 5-year plans were introduced in India as well. What do you think made the difference in China that they went ahead of us?
Well, between India and China, there are two things which stand apart. One is whatever policies and plan China announces, it is completed within that specific
deadline.
time frame.
Correct.
Here, we are seeing since 1947, whatever something is announced, it takes infinite time, I would say. Infinite, why I say infinite? Not in the literal sense, in the colloquial sense, because if a project which is supposed to finish in 2 years, finishes in 7 years, apart from the cost overruns, we have delayed the further development in that particular place. So there's an infinite loss which is happening.
So do you think this is the reason behind continuous elections going on, continuous change in governments, continuous change in leadership, vision, aims? Because in China, you see even if the leadership changes, there is a continued guidance in their mind that they have to achieve this goal irrespective of the leadership or aim they're having.
The fact that the army recognizes, the army's number one position is you maintain loyalty to the CCP, not to China.
Yes, sir. And also one thing that I've noticed in the book is you have written about that usually there is a lot of difference between politics and military. But in China, politics is a part of military and there's a person appointed who overlooks that, who will take the leadership. He also should align to the CCP's vision.
Okay. See, apart from the one point that I said that China implements its plans and policy within a specific time frame, that is how they ensure their 5-year plans always have been successful. The other thing that China has done is they keep religion within the 4 walls, or they keep religion as a private affair. In India, since 1947, we have been seeing every political party trying to misuse religion. It has been happening since 47. Now, what happens when you get in religion in everyday affair? It is bound to create fissures. It is bound to create the divide. Now, for every political party, coming to power is important. It is perfectly justified. Each one of us wants to be successful.
Right.
There's nothing wrong in that. But it is happening at what cost? Since 47, I'm not saying I'm saying since 47, which I've written in my book also. Since 47, every political party tries to misuse religion, tries to divide the people. As a result, they come to power. One or the other party comes to power. But overall, the progress of the nation suffers.
What is the point of having successful election in the world's largest democracy when you can't have those policies implemented?
Exactly. So, China has done a thing which I think we as a nation need to do it. We all respect all religions. I respect all religions. Being in the army, my regiment had Hindu troops, Sikh troops, Muslim troops. We had a masjid, mandir, gurdwara, all 3 under one roof. Called the Sar Dharam Sthal.
Right, sir.
I've studied a few of my formative years in this convent school. I used to go to chapel, a church as a kid. So for me, all religions are equal. Till today, whenever I leave my house, if there's a mosque, a mandir, a gurdwara or a church, my head bows in reverence. Because for me, I've been part of everything. So religion as a respect is fantastic. It should be done, but it should be kept away from the politics, because religion is also one thing which is easiest if used to divide people. Today, the best friends can never have enmity on anything except talks on religion.
Right.
So another thing we need to learn from China is, if we want to become as developed as them, is to keep religion between the 4 walls. By 4 walls, I mean as a private affair between me and my God, between my and the deity I worship.
Right.
But sir, additionally with China and the way they've operated, isn't it like evident that China, they destroyed the 4 olds, they destroyed old thoughts, old culture, old tradition, old religion, stuff like that, The CCP was known to be not very tolerant of Buddhists. They entered the Dalai Lama situation in China. The fact that they forced everyone to become Han Chinese, even if they were not. Like, they're doing it to the Uyghurs as well, They're destroying masjids, they're transforming them into CCP propaganda centers and stuff. So the fact that they impose homogenization upon their nation, essentially there's only one party, one leader, one China, one ethnicity, one language, one tradition, that is the CCP. I mean, isn't it a bit horrifying prospect, the fact that, even if we may idolize the circumstances they created, it came at an unprecedented cost of human lives.
That's where humanity versus your success as a nation comes into play.
Correct.
If you have to consider humanity as a point, then of course you can consider the democratic values. But if you have to consider that your area should be much more higher, your military should be at par with others, then of course you have to sacrifice these things. You can look at the example of Russia, China, Israel today.
easier to have a goal.
It's easier depending. Yeah.
Kom, coming to your question, this is the third point which I've written. I've written 3 points in my chapter 8 in which I've said we got to learn from China 3 things. The first is they have a one political party system which we cannot have because we're a democracy.
Of course.
The second is keeping religion a private affair. And the third is implementing plan and policies in a specific time frame. Coming to your specific question, I totally agree with you. They have been successful in doing this because they had one political party system. So there the entire loyalty, and you rightly said the Chinese military has loyalty first to the Chinese Communist Party, then they have to their government or their constitution.
Yeah.
Whereas with the democracies, be it US, be it United Kingdom, be it India, we have multi-party system or two-party system. So this one political party system cannot work. But what can work is how to implement certain things where we ensure that our progress doesn't suffer. Because ultimately what matters in life, it matters how you progress. Because today, as we are staring at a two-front war with China, which I mentioned in my book, what is going to help us? Is it going to help us that how many religious sermons I attended? Is it going to help us that how loyal I was to my religion? Or what I did to ensure my religion gets propagated? Or is it going to ensure how is our preparedness against the adversary? So, if we strike a balance, and believe me, it is not difficult to strike a balance. And when I say it with conviction, having served in the army for over 21 years, having trained for 4 years, 25 years I've worn the uniform. Army is one place where our politicians need to learn lessons. Of all political parties, they should spend some time in an army unit and see how people work there. And this is the culture that we need in India. We need it right from beginning. We need it today. We need a culture where the country comes first.
There's the same thing, sir, whenever we are having a discussion with a veteran army man, like we had our previous podcast with Wing Commander Praful Bakshi, sir. So he also reiterated the same things. Like military discipline is kind of another different thing where you put politics, religion, everything separate and you focus on humanity as a whole, on the development of a country as a whole. So there is no discrimination there.
Correct. And when you put your country first, obviously people will follow suit.
Right.
You may win or lose elections. It is okay. Winning or losing is part of life. We all haven't been successful right from day one. We have had our own shares of failures. If I start, telling my failures, the show will get prolonged by 3-4 hours. So there are failures also which one undergoes. But the point is that our politicians of all parties, it's my request to them through your, esteemed channel, that don't take winning or losing elections too hard. You have fought an election, fine. You won, you lost, but don't compromise the basic values of our country.
Yeah.
Don't do something which damages our country. And here I would like to say one very important thing. We always keep on blaming Pakistan, China for any terrorism which happens. Right? They are the usual culprits. There's no denying the fact. But those who have read about the Punjab terrorism which happened in the 80s and 90s, how did it start? Pakistan didn't start it. China didn't start it. Who started it? Our own politicians. Because one political party wanted to downsize the other political party, certain militant people were, fanned, supported, and then they became too big for their boots, and Pakistan was waiting for this opportunity. Pakistan jumped in. As a result, what happened? There was mayhem. For 15 long years, there were bloodbaths and mayhem in Punjab. So many thousands died. Finally, it was curbed.
Effects are still felt, sir. Like the issue is still going on.
The issue is still happening. We are still seeing it. It started by political parties. So the point that I want to make is, again, you may win or lose elections. It's perfectly fine. We respect all our politicians. We respect all the political parties. But if you are winning elections at the cost of weakening the country, the damages will be seen for decades to come. And like you rightly said, the Khalistan issue which started in 80s and 90s, till today, we are in 2024, it is still there. It is becoming, rather, I would say, it is now taking a dangerous turn, international turn now. Yeah. We have suffered so much because of this terrorism. The Air India 382 Kanishka flight, crashed.
Right.
So the point that I'm making is that until and unless we don't have that inherent love for our country, inherent love means I'm prepared to lose, but I'll not the values of the country. And what are the values of the country? The values of the country are enshrined in our laws, in our constitution. Those are the values of our country. And being a ex-army personnel, having worn the uniform, again, what I said in the beginning, you have faith in yourself, have faith in your country, have faith in the constitution, faith in the laws, you'll never go wrong. Till today, believe me, if there's a red light, but the road is totally vacant, I'll never jump the red light. Because I know it is against the law. I'll get late by 2 minutes. But if I'm doing it, there'll be somebody watching me. I am, in an unknowing way, I'm becoming a wrong role model for someone. So what is important is, like you rightly said, Rudraksh, that if we have to become a credible power, a power to be reckoned with, the way today China is, Russia is, America is, we need to have some basic changes, and that basic changes have to be driven by our politicians of all political parties, because finally the people look at them, because they are on the media day and night. Their one word is lapped up by millions of people. Their one tweet has got millions of retweets and likes. So if today we have that inherent character in us, that we will not compromise on the national values, I think we will see a remarkable change in the next few years, not even decades.
So talking about elections and the fact that your book is called China's War Clouds, so I would like to bring to the forefront a very horrifying plausibility. Suppose if China goes to war, with the US, Taiwan conflict does spiral into a conflict. The fact is that, China is not fighting the American army. They're just waiting for the elections. Because the fact is, given the way populations are in the current political spectrum in the US, they just have to wait out the war. If they can fight on as long as the population loses heart, they'll vote out any warmonger is there. So don't you think that, China's army is just banking on the fact, they expected Taiwan to crumble, implode. That's the policy they made.
Yeah.
But now our political turbulence has come to a point where there's so many, inconsistent factionalism in politics around the world. The fact that if it spirals into armed conflict, they don't have to fight a war. They have to wait out an election.
Till 1982, the armies in the world were following a military doctrine called the active defense doctrine. And this is related to a question. I'll just take a little background to explain this point which you made. Active defense said that the army of a nation, will sit in the trenches. When the enemy attacks from your trenches, you will protect your country and do limited offense. In 1982, a new doctrine came in the world called as the Air-Land Battle Concept Doctrine, which said that the Army, Navy, Air Force will work in conjunction for any military operation, and which is followed by all the military of the world, including US and India, as on date. But after the Gulf War of 1991, which saw USA leading a 42-nation multinational coalition force, which was pretty successful, for the first time, they used computers to generate the fighter aircraft sorties. The computers of that time generated more than 1,000 aircraft sorties a day, and 42-nation coalition force had these sorties flying based on those computer outputs. Now, 1991 computers are pretty basic. I mean, what you're seeing today, because I just been commissioned in the army that time, so I can correlate. They're pretty basic there. I mean, you guys all are young. You can't even probably comprehend how those computers were that time. So when they achieved this unprecedented success in 2001, they took out a new military doctrine called as the full spectrum warfare doctrine.
Right. That kind of 6 warfare they have to master in.
Now, there's only one country in the world which has said that their military is ready to fight in this full spectrum doctrine.
China.
And that is China.
Not even USA. And USA introduced this doctrine in the world, and China completed it before USA.
The irony, like you rightly said, Rudraksh, America introduced this doctrine, but even they are not following it. In 2014, the PLA, the Chinese army, Chinese military said in the military doctrine that we are ready to fight any nation in the world, in any part of the country, in all the 6 domains of war: cyber, electromagnetic spectrum, space, land, sea and air.
Sir, I would like to interrupt, and you can just clear the audience. Even I wasn't much clear about it, and I didn't even hesitate to research on it because I wanted to clear it out from the horse's mouth only. So, sir, what is the meaning of this electromagnetic war?
Yeah, good. So I'll just finish your question, then answer this. So now when China said this in 2014, they're ready to fight in all the 6 domains. These 6 domains encompass that anything that can be weaponized will be weaponized.
Right.
The war is not limited to Army, Navy, Air Force. Anything that you can think of can be weaponized. Your smartphone is a weapon today.
We have seen this.
We saw the pager attacks. What Israel did. Now, coming to these 3 new terms which I talked about, cyber, electromagnetic spectrum, and space. Because land, sea, air battles, we all are aware. We all have been reading a lot of.
Yes. Right.
Now, these 3 terms, cyber warfare means using the computer or the internet and weaponizing it so that the other nations' critical infrastructure dissipates or it gets crumpled.
Power
For example,
grids, banking system,
like your power grids, your banking systems.
healthcare.
Now imagine when China has to launch a war on any country at the same time when it's about to launch the war. It cripples your, your banking systems, your electricity grids fail. Now, at the same time, like I said some time back, the water from the 60,000 megawatt dam is released. Here your cyber thing has taken a toll. Your important websites, they are being hacked. And at the same time, the war is taking place. So you can imagine the chaos it will create.
Right.
In the top leadership, in anyone who's dealing, because there'll be multiple fronts the world have to face it. Now, the second thing is electromagnetic spectrum. We all know last year on 7th October, Hamas attacked Israel at 6:30 in the morning. From 6:30 a.m. to 6:50 a.m. for 20 minutes, the entire electromagnetic spectrum of the Israeli Defense Forces was jammed.
So why was
This
it
meant-
jammed?
yes.
It was voluntarily jammed, or it was just
purposefully jammed.
purposeful?
It was purposefully jammed so that the military commanders of the Israeli army cannot communicate with each other. So for 20 minutes, Israel did not know over 1,000 Hamas personnel has entered 15 miles inside Israel and they're causing mayhem and bloodbath. Now, what is electromagnetic spectrum? When you and I talk on a mobile, the mobile waves, air waves go through a specific spectrum. That is the civil
Right,
spectrum.
So is it the same kind of a thing 4G, 5G, 6G is now working upon?
Yeah.
Right.
The 4G, 5G are the technologies, the speed.
Yes,
But
sir.
in the spectrum, in the airway spectrum, certain bandwidth is given to the civilians for civilian use. Like you and I talking on a mobile, what happens? I ring you up. My signal goes to the nearest star. The nearest star picks up my signal. For the number the call is intended for, it sends the signal to that particular tower. That particular tower sends it to your mobile number. Now, this is the civil spectrum in which anyone can use these airwaves. But there's a defense spectrum in which the communication is only for that nation's military. Now, the spectrum of the Indian military, no civilian can use it. Now, what China will do, it will jam your defense spectrum. Civil spectrum jamming is easy. It will jam your defense spectrum, like what Hamas did. Hamas jammed for 20 minutes the Israeli Defense Forces military spectrum. They didn't know what was happening. And then we know what all is going on after that. Now, Hamas did not do it alone, because it is a very technologically advanced subject to do. China held them.
Is it on record? So like, is there any backing for it?
Yes. I have quoted with all the references in my book. Every well-researched reference that I give, my behind references, every word that I've written has got a reference. And I've checked the reference, cross-checked it thrice. So it is there. Now, so this is the kind of impact an electromagnetic spectrum warfare would do. Third is the space warfare. Nations also have military satellites. Military satellites give you real-time movement of the troops, give you real-time metadata, which is required for military purposes. Now, as on date, USA has got 313 military satellites. China has 245 military satellites. India has 26 military satellites. Now, as per US, by 2030, China will be the biggest space power in the world. Now, in 2017, China did something which shook the world. What it did? We all are aware that the aircraft fly at a height of generally 36,000 feet. That's the general height that the aircraft fly on. The satellites fly much higher. In 2017, China shot down a satellite of its own as part of ASAT, anti-satellite operations. That was the first time a nation had done this. And what it messaged the world by doing this? that in
dominant
times of war, we can destroy all your
communication,
military communication satellites we want to.
Right.
So your warfare is now reached the space. So the military satellite which a nation has, even they are not safe and secure today. So their measures, countermeasures have to be taken, which are being taken. So these three terms and how the future wars will fan out. Till now, all the wars are land, sea and air forces will attack. The future wars, China will first do cyber warfare. It'll do electromagnetic jamming. It'll destroy your space assets. And once the nation is crippled, thereafter your land, sea, air forces will come. Now, once your land, sea, air forces come, already the morale of the nation being attacked would be at its lowest ebb, because everything would be in a state of disarray. And what will happen? For their land, sea and air forces, seizing their military objective will be in a very short time frame. For example, let us talk of Taiwan. When they will attack Taiwan in 2027, which I've written in my book, they will employ all these measures first. And when the amphibious forces, the naval forces reach the Taiwan coastline, the major part of the battle would have been over, because China has learned one lesson from the prolonged Russia-Ukraine war and the prolonged Israel-Hamas war,
Right.
that their wars have to be short and swift. Blitzkrieg, that's the right military term. If they have to be short and swift, they have to ensure that the things leading to that have been to be so foolproof that the nation being attacked has no option but to give up moment their land or the sea forces come. When I say Taiwan sea forces, because since it's an island, their major role after the cyber, space and electromagnetic will be played by the Navy. In the cases of the other wars which I mentioned, like for their war for Arunachal and all, the army will play a major role after these three, and thereafter, the other things. So, but for Taiwan, it is the Navy. And as we talk today, China already has the world's largest Navy. Despite having the world's largest Navy, day and night construction in the 6 naval dockyards is going on for 2 aircraft carriers, 21 nuclear submarines and 200 warships. Now, I would like to ask China, and those people who say China's expansion is for, or China's progress is for peace, I would like to ask them through your channel, if indeed China's development is for peace, why are they building up the military power so much when they already are a big military power?
500 nuclear warheads.
Can any country in the world, including USA, think of attacking China? No one can think of attacking China. If no one can dare attack them, and they have all the military power and they are still building it up, their defense budget has been increased for last 9 years consecutively. What does it show? It clearly shows their designs for wars. It clearly shows that they want to annex land. So their development, their military expansion is not for peace. It is for war purposes, because no one will invest this kind of money when you're already a powerful nation. One small example I would like to give to the viewers. We all stay in our houses. We all make our houses secure. We have CCTV cameras. We have those who can afford, there's a guard outside. Those who can afford, they have 2 guards outside. But once you have done all this, and there's no threat to your house in the neighborhood you're staying, no one will dare think of attacking you, then why would you spend money day and night to have things which a normal household would not have when you already made a house safe and secure? It is because you probably have something else in your heart, in your mind. You want to do something, you want to achieve something. This is exactly the case with China. The way they are developing the military, the infrastructure. I've talked about the Belt Road Initiative, how it is going to be used for the military purposes. Everything in China today has got a latent military aim.
So one of the very important thing that I want to ask here is, and me and Komjit were also discussing it yesterday night, that China hasn't fought any major war in these recent years, in this decade. So how far do you think having constant experience in these domains? India is always engaged in Kashmir. We also had the surgical strikes. But coming to China, post the Cold War era, we haven't seen much of any direct spearheaded war by China?
Because in Africa, when last it occurred, the Chinese delegation, they were almost smashed. There's a lot of confusion. They suffered in battle. China really does lack solid military experience right now.
Yes, you're absolutely right, both of you. See, the last war that China fought was in 1979 with Vietnam, which they lost. And to take over Taiwan, they've had three wars attempts, which are called as the Taiwan Strait Crisis. Two were bloody, the third one was without any bloodshed. Now, after all this, they realized one thing, that if China has to win a war, they have to be so advanced in technology that the effort or the burden on the soldier is reduced drastically. They have to make things so easy for their soldiers that, like I said, the wars have to be short and swift so that not much strain comes on a soldier, because fighting wars and battle is very taxing. It is very strenuous.
We can see that in Russia as well.
Russia, Ukraine, I have served in countless areas in Assam and Jammu and Kashmir. I can tell you, I mean, those are counter-insurgency areas. They were not full-fledged wars. But that time only the stress was so much, because you do not know what will happen when. And when there's uncertainty, that is the biggest mental tension you can have in life. You do not know what is going to happen the next minute. Like, I'll give you an example. When I was posted in my regiment in Patan, which is in the Kashmir Valley, our AK-47s were always with us day and night. Whether sleeping also, the AK used to be with us. So the point that I'm making is that wars and battles are, as it is, very strenuous. Now, with the soldiers not having the bad experience which the army, Indian army has, so they are trying to make it easy for them using technology. And you see, last 5 days, 6 days, we have seen 143 Indian flights getting hoax calls.
Yes, sir.
Part of the cyber warfare, you make a email accounts from somewhere, you send an email, and that email cannot be traced who has done it. It's part of cyber warfare. 143 flights grounded for some time. Apart from the economy being disrupted, inconvenience caused to the passengers, the stress and strain on the people who are working there to ensure everything is safe. You see, it has got all a telling effect. So China is aware of the inadequacies in its fighting forces, the soldiers per se, but it is trying to make it up with the technology. And like, again, coming to the Israel-Hamas war, it's been more than 1 year. The end of the Israel-Hamas war is nowhere in sight.
No.
Because of the initial advantage which they got. Now, let us take our mind back to 7th October. Suppose the Israeli Defense Forces had picked up all the intelligence, had acted on it, their electromagnetic spectrum was not jammed, they would have given a befitting reply right from the moment the Hamas tried. You think the war would have prolonged so much?
No.
No. Because the initial advantage Hamas got by taking so many 241 hostages, 101 of them are still with them. The initial advantage which Hamas got, it is a 1 year more than prolonged war which is nowhere in sight. So the point I'm making is that China is using technology to the hill to ensure that the inadequacies or the incapabilities which its soldiers have is mitigated to a large extent. And that's it why the future wars of China will be short and swift and will be highly technologically driven.
So considering the brevity of the time,
Yes.
I would like to move straight towards the two-front war of India.
Yeah.
So, sir, do you think we are capable enough in the coming years ahead to counter a two-front war? What preparations do we need ahead? What counter operations do we need ahead?
Last year on 7th August 2023, General M.M. Naravne, who has been the 28th Chief of Army Staff of the Indian Army, wrote in an article in the print in which he clearly said, a two-front war on India will be disastrous. As on date, China is 3 decades or 30 years ahead of us in military preparedness. But we are working on it. In fact, yesterday, I attended the lecture of the Chief Army Staff General Upendra Dwivedi in USI Delhi, where he spoke of the technological transformation that will take place in the Indian Army next 1 decade. And after hearing the lecture, I can tell you that the Indian Army is moving on a war footing. And there are a lot of changes which have been incorporated, which are being worked upon, and we are now alive to the fact that to tackle a strong adversary like China, we need revolutionary changes, some of which I've discussed in my book, some yesterday the army chief also deliberated upon in his address. So we are working on it. As on date, like I said, they are ahead of us, but we are working on it. And I'm sanguine with the kind of military leadership we have today, with the kind of strong political leadership we have today, we will be able to match up to their level. But also I would like to say, which I've written in my book also, there are certain things which we need to take care of. And those points, as we discuss, I would like to say the first thing that I would like to stress upon is Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India. This is extremely important for us. You know, Prime Minister Modi gave this visionary idle statements shortly after he took over as the Prime Minister. In May 14 took over the first time, and Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India were announced in September 14 and in April 2020. These have been visionary statements because our defense sector, defense production has changed totally. I've written in my book how we, a country which used to import weapons, where every CEO of every big arms and ammunition company of the world used to be in India half the time because the deals were so big.
Right.
Today we are exporting to 85 countries. But the success in the defense sector needs to be emulated in the other sectors also. The government of India has done the best it can. It is now the businessmen of India who have to live up. And I'll take 2 minutes, please, because this is very important.
Absolutely.
Today, when a common citizen like you and me goes to the market to purchase anything, out of 10 items on the market shelf, 9 are made in China. What do? If I have to purchase something, invariably, I'll be purchasing a Chinese product because though being a conscious citizen, I'll ask, China mein to nahi bana hua, isn't made in China. The shopkeeper will say no. I'll see it. I'll not be able to see anything, any tag of made in China. But later on, I'll come to know when I do Google search, this is making, but they have hidden the label. All these things happen. Now, here is where the role of our entrepreneurs, businessmen comes into play. They have to make products in India. Once they make in India, will they sell in India, and will people like you and me purchase? But today, it is a very sorry state to say, and I have no hesitation saying this, our businessmen prefer importing stuff from China because their profit margins are more.
Right.
In June 2020, we all are aware the Galwan Valley clash happened, and 20 brave soldiers of the army, Indian army, were killed by the Chinese army. That time, our trade with China was 87 billion American dollars.
It is now.
And it is so sad that after 2020, every year on year, our trade has been increasing with China. And last year, trade reached a whopping 136.2 billion American dollars. Now, do we realize a part of this trade, a part of this money which China is earning, it is using to strengthen its army. That same army is going to attack us. That same army is going to kill our soldiers.
Right.
Why has China been able to increase their budget for 9 consecutive years? Because of the trade they're doing with India and the other countries.
And it's
So-
always in trade surplus, never in trade deficit.
Exactly. So our businessmen have to make in India. The onus is now on them. They should have less profits, but make in India so that they sell in India and we purchase any product we want which is made in India. This is the biggest thing, biggest point I would like to say through Esteem channel to all our businessmen. Please make in India. The government of India is giving you a lot of incentives. Please take them. Government of India is doing a lot of hand holding. Approach them. But make in India. Don't import from China.
So, given your military experience, I have one question that's been bugging me, we're talking about the two-front war. So, in the two-front war, the biggest issue is logistics. You need men, officers who are capable enough to handle this stuff. And I think it was Napoleon who once said, true wars are won on logistics, that's what the true power of wars is. So, my question is, we've seen that in history as well with Zedong's time. I think it was Marshall, I forgot his name too, who was, cast aside despite being a hero of the Civil War because of his political interferences. And the fact that the PLA today gives promotions based on political, inclinations instead of pure marital skill that a soldier possesses. Do you anything that, their officer cadre is strong enough? Because we see in history, when the Germans invaded the Soviets in Operation Barbarossa, Stalin had just conducted the first purge of the Red Army, and his officer cadre was, nigh non-existent to combat the Germans. It has been, especially in history, that often where armies have political inclinations, they tend to be weaker when it comes to direct combat, because then these generals don't seek glory in what they seek glory in their cabinets.
Yeah.
Kovam, you got a very pertinent question, but like I said sometime back, in China, the advantage which they have as a nation, they have only one political party. So come what may, whatever be their soldiers or their officers, their loyalty will remain only to the one political party.
There is no either way. It's only one way.
There's no option. There's only one political party.
Correct.
And right from beginning, which I mentioned in the book, they have political commissars, in which a civilian of the Chinese Communist Party is deputed to every unit of the Chinese military, be the Army, Navy, Air Force, and he oversees their political indoctrination. There's a test for political, consciousness, political loyalty, and only then is a person promoted, apart from his military caliber. Now, they can do it because they have one political party system, but the other democracies cannot do it because either there's a two political party system like the UK or the US, or a multi-party political system like the army. But, you see, if we see the Indian army, our history, despite of having unity in diversity, despite having soldiers from all caste, creed, color, regions, still we have won every war till date. And if the 62 war we lost, it was not because the army lost it. It was because our political leadership did not give us the free hand. We kept on asking, allow us to use the Indian Air Force. We were not given.
It was Wing Commander Bakshi also highlighted this, that if there was no 1962, then we would have definitely lost to Pakistan as well, because the leadership didn't realize that we need to wake up right now, and leaving politics aside, we need to develop our military arm right now.
Right after 62 was the 1965 border skirmish with China, where China decisively lost.
Correct.
Yes, the 1967
The realization is very important.
Nathula War. Coming to a point, Koamji, you just mentioned some time back about the political inclination. It has happened in the Indian Army. As the build-up for the 62 war was taking place, there was one officer, Lieutenant General Col, who was from the ASC, the logistics part of the army. Now, in the army, the command is given to the combat arms or the supporting arms. We have that distinction because of logical operational reasons. A logistical officer cannot command fighting formations. But because Lieutenant General Col had got political connections, he got in place at GOC 4 Corps, which was the mainstay fighting China in the northeastern sector. He had no battle experience, no combat experience. Now that is the damage which political interference does in countries where there's more than one political party. In China, like I said, there's one political party, they have no option.
We have no allegiance to somewhere.
But places where there is more than one political party,
Right.
the best is always to keep the military of that country away from politics. Because you see, business is a very serious affair. War is a very serious affair. War is a serious business. We may think war is very simple, give a gun, he'll go and fight. No. The kind of planning which goes on, the kind of training which goes on is phenomenal. Having been part of the organization, I can tell you. Some of us think, joining the army means end of our studies. It's a common myth. I also was part of this myth. Because when I joined that time, mine was the last course of NDA, we didn't have to give the 12th exams. So I joined after my 11th. I was very happy I won't have to give my 12th boards. But the kind of reading or studies I've done in the army is much more that I would have done normally.
Right, so.
Because war is a very serious business, which can only be understood by those who are in uniform. So war is best left to the people who are experts in that. For example, lawyers best understand law. Because they understand what is written between a line, what is the meaning of one word.
Right, so.
Even the small word if it is placed here and there, it can change the connotation. Lawyers are trained for that. Similarly, the military person trained to fight a war, to defend a war. So again, I would say, coming to your question, politics and the military should be totally separate if a country wants victory in wars. Because war is a very, very serious business, and I've been part of counter-insurgency operation. I know that little bit interference can create mayhem.
So, coming to BRI, and the String of Pearls.
Yes.
How far do you think it's a success? And coming to the recent political dilemma in Maldives, then the economic losses that Pakistan is facing right now, how far do you think the CPEC is successful, the investments in this in Maldives? After that, there's a political turmoil in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. How far do you think these projects are successful coming to the leadership?
Right. You see, after Xi Jinping became the president of China for the first time on 14th March 2013, he realized one thing. He's got a lot of money as a country. Now his mind started working that I have money. Now's the time to fulfill the military aspirations. And few months after he took over as the Chinese president, on 8th July 2013, there's an article which appeared in Win Weepu, which is a Chinese government newspaper published in Hong Kong, whose title was 6 Wars That China Will Fight in the Next 50 Years. In that, war number 1 is Taiwan, which the war is slated in 2027. War number 2 is for Spratly Islands, which are discussed in our book. And the third war is a two-front war with Pakistan on India. Now, we all are aware in China, no one can speak or write anything without the approval of the Chinese Communist Party.
Right.
Because in China, the importance is for the Chinese Communist Party. Governments can come and go. Ministers can come and go. Army generals can come and go. But the Chinese Communist Party
will stay on
will
forever.
remain supreme.
Right.
This is how they work. So definitely this article had the approval from the highest officers of the CCP. Such a big article with specific time frames. Now, what happens? This article is published in July 2013. After 2 months, Xi Jinping goes on his first foreign visit to Kazakhstan. And there he announces the Belt and Road Initiative, the road part. Or the belt part that they call it. Basically the land infrastructure. And in October next month, he goes to Indonesia where he announces the maritime part of the BRI.
Right.
Now, when the BRI was launched and it has been incorporated as a paragraph in the Chinese Constitution 2017, when BRI was launched, until date, the Western media says it's a big failure. A lot of memes are made, a lot of jokes are made, and most of the defense analysts also, we see on the Indian television also, with my due respect to them, they all say, CPEC has crumpled. Pakistan will break into 4 nations. Nothing can happen to Pakistan. It is a gone case country. But I would like to tell them that, sirs, with due respect, please read something. Because what is there in the print media in various research that I've done is totally different. Firstly, BRI is a success. Secondly, CPEC is a success. Their 22 projects of CPEC have been completed. 5 are under construction and all will be completed by 2030. And those who talk about Pakistan being blown up into 4 countries, Pakistan will never break into 4 countries. For whatever tensions they have within, Pakistan has got a unique system which not many of us know. Pakistan has got a feudal family system. There are 25 families in Pakistan who control virtually the entire Pakistan. And these 25 families have got land holdings in thousands of acres. So whosoever becomes the president of Pakistan, prime minister of Pakistan, these 25 families decide. When we say that the cost of wheat in Pakistan has gone to so and so, it's skyrocketed, the common citizen there is crying for food. The reality is something different. These 25 feudal families, the people who work under them, they give them whatever they want at reasonable prices. So on the face of it, it seems that Pakistan will collapse into 4 countries, but the feudal families and China will never allow Pakistan to collapse. Why China? Because a united Pakistan is easier for China to handle than a fragmented Pakistan. Now, coming to CPEC or BRI, though Xi Jinping has stated that BRI is for economic development, the fact is it is for military enhancement. Why? Because all your land infrastructure, all your maritime infrastructure can be used during wars. These are being made dual used, both for civilian purposes and for military purposes.
That is also an alternative to the Malacca Strait.
Yeah, I was coming to that. CPEC is an alternative to the Malacca dilemma which China had been facing for a long time, because 80% of its exports or imports
that Malacca
and
Strait.
4 trillion worth American dollars worth of trade every year happens through the Malacca Strait. And China always has been fearful that if the Indian Navy or the American Navy blocks Malacca Strait, their entire supplies, the entire logistics will
be hampered.
will be hampered, hindered.
Right, sir.
So they worked on this Malacca dilemma as an alternative to that, and CPEC is the thing, because from Kashgar in Xinjiang to Gwadar in Pakistan, they have this land route where their logistic movement takes place or can be enhanced. As a result, even if Malacca Strait is blocked by the Indian Navy or the American Navy, this route will always remain open because they are on good terms with Pakistan. Now, why China needs a big navy apart from Taiwan? China also needs a big navy for the Malacca dilemma. But at the same time, it is working on its CPEC, which is almost complete, like I said. So firstly, BRI is a success from the Chinese point of view. CPEC is not a failure. And when people speak without reading or research, they're causing a lot of damage to the country because they set the wrong narrative. The real thing is, these are successful projects. And what it means that the Chinese and the Pakistani military preparedness is on expected lines. As per them, it is progressing well according to their point of view, which is warning bells for India.
So I would also like to add here, I've seen some vlogs of some Pakistani YouTubers and some of the Indian YouTubers who have visited China and in the Tibetan Plateau region. So there are bullet trains being made up at the height of 14,000 feet. Yeah, so from Beijing to Tibetan Plateau, the nearby area, you can reach via bullet train. And we are here struggling to build tunnels, and now there are coming up protests and all that. You need National Green Tribunal's intervention here. And in Pakistan's vlog, I have seen that these motor vloggers are visiting in the near the POK region, and the roads that have been built, there are 4-lane roads that have been built here. So absolutely, CPEC is not a success, BRI is a success. CPEC is a success and BRI is a success, and we need the Indian Army and the Indian military and the Indian leadership needs to realize this thing as soon as possible.
China works with Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu once said that never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake.
Correct.
If we are underestimating them, they're not going to tell us.
Let the enemy underestimate us.
Very true. Just few days back during the SEO summit, the Information Broadcasting Unit of Pakistan said on a question by Indian journalist, he said that the CPEC is the lifeline of Pakistan. You were not wrong.
There were no roads or connectivity like this earlier.
Correct. So, as far as the two-front war is concerned, their CPEC is on track, their BRI is on track. Now you come to the string of pearls, which you asked. You see, China always wanted to encircle India from the sea route. Why? Because whenever it wages a war, which as per my timeline is 2035, their target is Arunachal Pradesh.
Right.
Because the two-front war, for your viewers, I like to explain, is that in 2035, Pakistan will attack India for Jammu and Kashmir, and at the same time, China will attack India for Arunachal Pradesh. But for these two military targets of China and Pakistan, there'll be a lot of other fronts opened up so that our, reaction gets divided. And the other reaction which open up, apart from the cyber, electromagnetic, which I talked about some time back, would be the sea front. Now, from the sea route, China will aim to encircle us. So for this, what it planned some years back was that it should have ports all along India's sea axis so that it can block India's maritime assets.
Right.
As we talk, the Gwadar port in Pakistan is under China's control. Hambantota in Sri Lanka is under China's control. And last year on 20th March 2023, China constructed the Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, which is a naval port of the Bangladesh Navy. And today, there are 2 Chinese submarines docked in Cox's Bazar. Now, Maldives. There's a Lamu atoll in Maldives where Chinese military activity has been seen. Kai Phuoc, which is an island near Myanmar, belongs to Myanmar. Chinese military activity has been seen. So we see the Indian map from the seaside. China military bases are all along our coastline. Gwadar, Maldives, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. So this is their string of pearls or the sea route by which they want to encircle and entrap India. Now, another thing I would like to tell you is the relation between Pakistan and China. Often we hear in the Indian media a lot of friction between China, Pakistan, and one statement is made as breaking news for days, that China is anti-Pakistan or something like that. The reality again is something else. Since 2021, China and Pakistan armies have been, the Pakistani military officers have been posted to the Western Theatre Command of China in Chengdu. Now, foreign army personnel going on courses, going for meetings is normal practice, but never are the foreign officer of a foreign army posted in one's own headquarters, military headquarters. It has been happening since 2021.
That means they are getting acclimatized to that condition.
Yeah, not only acclimatized to that, they are also working day and night
Joint warfare
for the joint warfare, for the, to ironing out any operational problem that might arise.
It started with Xi Jinping's article
Yeah.
to China, Pakistan, Dosti Zindaban.
Yeah.
Right.
In which he said that the friendship of India, China and Pakistan is higher than mountains, deeper than the seas, and sweeter than honey.
Right.
In 2021, another thing happened. There was a direct optical fiber cable laid between the Western Theatre Command of China and the general headquarters, which is the Pakistani Army's headquarters in Rawalpindi, for uninterrupted communication. And since Xi Jinping has taken over, there have been regular Army, Navy, Air Force exercises between Pakistan and China, where one aspect is practiced definitely, that interoperability. What it means, that when the need arises, the Chinese soldiers can operate Pakistani equipment and vice versa.
Right.
And as on date, 77% of the Chinese weaponry system is Chinese. So that is the kind of bonhomie with these two nations have. And what is it for? It is not for economic prosperity, for the military aims.
So, considering the time limit, we have to come to an end to this podcast. A very interesting discussion, and I would like every viewer of this podcast to purchase this book, to read this thorough and in-depth research covering all the aspects possible for the China aspect of the China warfare clouds that are going on here, and the Indian leadership, the Indian media, the Indian political system must consider the recommendations that have been given in this book and thoroughly research upon them and then implement those recommendations that have been provided. Thank you so much, sir. Any recommendations that you have for us, and what's your feedback for this podcast?
First of all, my immense gratitude to you, Rudraksh, to you, Kavam, to you, the entire team of Geo Juris today. It has been really phenomenal for me. It's a great experience, speaking to you. I didn't realize how time has passed. And my also salute and respect to you and your team that you allowed me to air my views, the way I perceive facts, the way I researched. And there was no things dictated to me that you'll not speak like this, you'll not speak like this. So my salute and respect to the entire Geo Juris Today team, that you have been so good, so, frank in allowing me to express my views. And I also feel very proud today interacting with all of you, you're the youth of the country, the future of the country, that we have such bright, brilliant minds who are, a great asset to our country. And I'm sure that as time will pass by, the assets which all of you are, you'll work for a stronger India, for a united India, for a powerful India. And I have no doubt, after interacting with all of you today, that the future of our country is in really beautiful hands. That is the hands of all of you. Thank you all once again. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much.